Hello, and I'd like to welcome you to somewhere that's become quite important to me. A special place just on the northeast side of Warrington, Parkfields Park, Stone Circle, and other associated monuments. I spend a lot of my time visiting ancient monuments, Bronze Age, Neolithic being my particular favourite, stone circles, tombs, barrows, standing stones in particular. Now, our ancient ancestors lived in a relationship with the world, the stars, the celestial bodies. Now, I'm not suggesting it was a blissed out hippie movement by any distance, but there was a lot more understanding of our place and connection to the world around us and the universe around us. And as we've become more and more urbanised, greater population centres, more people living in dense communities, it's become a lot easier for us to feel distanced and removed from the world around us and from the heavens. And I'm all for places which offer some kind of sense of connection. And after moving to the Warrington area nearly a couple of years ago, I became aware of a stone circle on the northeast side of Warrington, a modern one, which got me excited because I will go and look at modern stone circles as well as the ones that are like 2,500 to 3,000 years old, as well as like the 4,000-year-old Neolithic tombs. Anyway, so over I came in, I think, February this year. I'll be popping some pictures into this, and I was absolutely thrilled to find an extensive park of a recreated kind of Neolithic Bronze Age landscape built in the 80s to add a sense of connection. And when you know what's going on, you actually get really, really excited. Alignments of the sunset, sunrise at different times of the year, like the solstices, it's actually quite special. So I want to give you a quick guided tour of Parkfields Park Stone Circle with outlying standing stones, a long barrow, what was once a labyrinth, some stepping stones, an avenue of trees, the stone circle, a maypole site, and the circle itself. Let's go and have a look. You have the full-on entrance to the complex arrangements. Small outlying standing stone there, and just in the middle of the picture there, you've got a recreated long barrow, which for the Neolithic period is a burial monument. Obviously, there's no burials here as far as we're aware of. But when you're looking at ancient monuments, say around the Stonehenge area being most famous, the long barrows are about the earliest feature which you can see surviving on the landscape. Now, I'm going to take you in via a different entrance. This had become terribly overgrown and was very hard to visually interpret. Now, there are no visual interpretation panels here, so people don't really know what we're looking at. And it'd be really good to have this place explained so that locals and visitors, we all understand what's going on, the solstitial alignments, the references to ancient landscapes. So you might just be able to see along the line of the watercourse is another stone. Okay. Now this is where I started getting quite excited about what is here at Parkfields Park. As if I hadn't already with this stone back there. But this menhir behind me there is an avenue of trees which points directly at the circle, and it's all quite magnificent. There's a variety of features which are lost or hard to interpret, and I'll give you a quick pointer through them as we go. So obviously we've got this large menhir here. Lovely afternoon sunshine. This is being filmed early December, so we're not actually far off the winter solstice. Sadly, I won't be around to be able to observe any possible alignment myself, but anyway, so on the outside we're now going towards the stone circle. I'm edging backwards. Now we have a circular feature. Okay, you might think of this as kind of hengiform Yeah, a bank and a ditch, but there's a water course goes around the outside. We'll now go forward. To these stepping stones. Have to be careful, these aren't too slippery. That's good. So keeping an eye in front of you, you've got the sight line going down between the avenue of trees to the circle. Yeah, going to pan around. So there's an outlying stone just to the left of those trees, and then panning around here, you can see the low bump of the long barrow. So we now have the circular feature, and there used to be a giant's hand within the centre of here. So think about your possibly prehistoric land giants like the Cern Abish giant with the notable member. So now here we have a circular ring, if ring's going to be anything other than circular, of trees. Yeah, and that is also raised on a slight low embankment. So again, it may appear to be kind of like a henge form structure at first sight, or the remains of a very flattened round barrow walking through the centre. Now this used to be a turf labyrinth, which are often used as a sort of contemplative earth mystery devices. So we're now taking a slow plod through what was the turf maze and the ring of trees. Now we have a couple yews just either side here, and again you get obviously yews in churchyards, sacred significance. Now as you can see, we are now walking into full view of the stone circle. I would travel to see a really good modern stone circle, and this is a really good one. I get very excited about this. So you've got pairs of stones around the outside, as well as your individual menhirs. Each of the pairs has sight lines through the park to other different features. There is a big bank around it, so again it's another henge form structure. And here, looking down the central axis, you can see all the way across to the park, the other side of the park, and there is a menhir in the distance. Well, then to the centre, it gets a bit muddy and boggy. So again, you can see it had been really overgrown. At this point, I will probably drop in some pictures from my first visit. I think it was February, earlier 2020, before things got weird with pandemic. And the side behind the picture at the moment is really, really overgrown. So we're now just outside of the centre. You've got the central tight ring of stones, and you can see it does get really, really waterlogged. And then what you might call a kind of cove feature, if you're familiar with ancient sites in the centre. I can hear my feet squelching. But of particular interest, you do have these sight holes, which probably point to something. So, yeah, let's bring that contrast down. So you would imagine that looking from here, then some solar event could well be sighted through these. So we're now on the southwest side of the circle. You've got the sight line back up there towards the barrow and the very first monolith we looked at. On the western side and the more overgrown eastern side. So I'm just going to swing around now. Just on the left there There's another outlying standing stone with some subtle earthworks. There was a children's play area just over there. Looking down through the park here, you can see that there are some more standing stones. Which give a sight line across the park, and if you follow that to the very, very far end, there is a much larger menhir just over there. Now, when I had my first look around here, I got so excited, realising it was just an awful lot more going on than a stone circle, a modern stone circle. I mentioned a couple circular earthworks with the Giant's Hand and the turf labyrinth as was. There are another 2 circular earthworks here, which when you walk around the countryside looking for evidence of monuments surviving and perished, even sometimes you get excited about a perished monument. So here we've got another big round feature. This is marked on an old plan as a site for a bonfire. Don't get any ideas, okay? Health and safety, all that stuff these days. There is another very low circular feature just over here in the centre of the picture. And you might just be able to see coming into view at the periphery another standing stone. So this circular feature here was actually the site for a maypole, and if you go and look carefully in the centre to see if we can find it, there is still actually the socket for the maypole. There we go. Here you still have the socket for having a maypole. So let's line this up, try not to get too wet feet from all the dew. We're looking back towards the stone circle there, the maypole socket's just in the foreground. And here we are on the southwestern side. Coming back into the entrance of the park. The outlying standing stone just there. The maypole site just in the foreground. The bonfire site between us and the stone circle. And I'm not going to walk over there because my feet are actually very wet, but I do have footage from earlier in the year, pictures on previous visits of the menhir just coming into view there. So somewhere like this I think is really very special and potentially very life enriching, adding a sense of connection when you understand alignments, solstices, yeah, the sun setting at different places at different times of the year, that there are monuments here that refer to ancient monuments for burial, for life. It's an enriching, really enriching sense of encompassing life, death, the universe, our world, tying us into being in a particular place, in a frame of reference within a community, within our planet, within our part of the universe. And I'd really love to see this wondrous monument to be enjoyed, to educate, to inform a far lot more. So thankfully in the past year there has been an awful lot of work to clear the site and open up. It had become quite unwelcoming in a number of ways. So this modern ritual landscape in an urban environment has the potential to be so enriching, really quite magnificent. This is a really cool place. I hope it doesn't ever get as overgrown as it was. Walking back past the long barrow, and coming into view at the path is a smaller intermediary standing stone along an alignment. looking back towards the circle, and you can see just to the left of the path there is another stone there, but the line of sight to the circle is still slightly obscured. So this is Parkfields Park Stone Circle. Really exciting place. Like an ordinary everyday neighbourhood, and that's good and fine because nearly everywhere that we live is ordinary everyday. But you have this extraordinary, in my opinion, modern, Bronze Age, Neolithic, ritual landscape. Just like shrieking, like saying, look, there is tying into the universe, the world, the celestial bodies going on right here on your doorstep. Like, be aware of it. Think of your place in the universe, your connections. You may be small, but you are connected. You are part of it all. Like, we're all made of stardust. We were all once floating around in nebulous, gaseous clouds, and then formed into the earth, and then became us. And one day we will be again. And it's just like a universal story laid out in front of us, and it's amazing. And just as an addendum, there is also the Birchwood Monolith adjacent the road from Birchwood over the motorway towards Warrington. I'll drop in a few pictures here, and again that has an alignment going on, a nice alcove of trees and subtle earthwork to it. Oh, and one more thing. Out at Birchwood, in what was part of the big ordnance site and depot, along one of the footpaths there is a curvilinear feature, shall we call it, a subtle earthwork. I don't know what that was. I have tried looking into it. I'll drop some pictures in here, so if any locals living here, especially in the 80s, know what that circular feature was. The path goes through it, and if you've been to a few henges like I have, it's the sort of thing I get up to, you walk through it and you're thinking somebody was maybe having a play with a henge here, like a type 2 henge, 2 entrances with a bank around it. So I'll drop some pictures of that on here. If you've enjoyed my video, please subscribe, interact. If you have a useful opinion or knowledge to offer, please do. It'd be great to hear from you. And well, this is my world. My worldview is seeing these ancient monuments, these landscapes, even in an ordinary housing estate, and pondering how it all connects up. Even if you haven't got any answers, the pondering and the participation, the walking, the going through the landscape and thinking about it, just all joins up. Take care.